Our next discussion is led by Kristen Hempstead of HP Advanced Compute Solutions. She's going to focus on technology as a force multiplier as we look to the future of defense. She'll be joined by Tommy Gardner, CTO of HP Federal, who has extensive experience across the many federal agencies and some of the biggest names in government contracting, obviously, of course, HP. He did a lot when he was in the Navy, but I think the thing that really just struck out at me that I was impressed with was commanding a nuclear submarine, and I thought that was uniquely impressive. And they're going to be joined by Joe Ayers, who is a senior director at AMD's public sector and who also has extensive federal experience, so it'll be great for the panel. But what I like best is that he also is an airborne ranger from the Army like I am. I want to especially thank HP and AMD for being our diamond sponsors here, which is really helping us put on a terrific event. So please take a minute to thank them as you're listening to today, ask them questions, and then see them out there in the networking event area and visit their booth. Please help me welcome these three leaders to discuss the future of defense, specifically technology as a force multiplier.
We're really excited to be here. First of all, I want to mention that I'm hoping that we learn a lot from you as much as hopefully you'll learn from us today at this panel. We have questions, but if anybody has questions during the panel, please feel free to ask. Just raise your hand. So as a Diamond sponsor at the summit, we're really proud to be here for the next day and a half and learn. I think it's important that you understand our value as industry leaders with HP and AMD, and we'll talk more about that with our HP workstations. That's the Z by HP logo, if you saw that. Are you guys familiar with the Z by HP logo? Okay. That's why I mentioned that. So we are part of HP Inc. or HP Federal, as Tommy mentioned, and why that's important is because it's the print and PC company versus the server storage network software solutions. Now we do offer our own solutions, including AI solutions, services, but I do want to just make sure you understand that we are the workstation side of the house, where your high performance personal computing is, your AI solutions, along with AMD CPU Threadripper, as well as their NPUs. So I'll be your moderator today, and as Neil mentioned, I am the public sector lead in Advanced Compute Solutions Group. Excited to be here as we explore the technologies around defense, where it's going, and how we can help you in the industry. The last thing I'll mention, Nitin couldn't be here today. He actually has I think it's a sprained ankle. I don't want to or a broken ankle mending, so it's probably better he's not here because of the stair situation. So that being said, Joe, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kristen. And good morning. Joe Ayers will lead our public team with AMD. It's interesting listening to Todd, too, by the way. I have to give him credit. I thought his pitch was good. I kept thinking about my mother down in Florida and how ferocious she's going to be fighting on budgetary cuts to mandatory programs. But from my background, AMD for about a year. I was at HP for, 11 years. Ran our Global 500 business, worked with corporate customers across the U.S., ran the public business there for, 8 years. Was over at Dell for 13 years, ran federal at Dell. So sold a lot of IT solutions. Before that, used to shoot missiles downrange as an Apache pilot, so I have an idea in terms of military and some of that background. So I am on the Army side of the equation, and we'll kick it over to my Navy brother. We did go to the Navy game, our Navy-Army game, and it was brutal. It was a sad day. Army had a great year. I was kind of hopeful against Notre Dame. Now I have a whole new philosophy. I got to call all my classmates. We're going to start raising some money because I can see it's a war of money now in college football. So.
It's hey, Tommy Gardner.
There you go, boss.
Yeah, it works. Got it. All right, better. Gosh, yeah, Tommy Gardner. I've got, as you mentioned, a submarine background. My first boss was Admiral Rickover. If you really want to learn as a young ensign, you go report to the admiral and get raked over the coals a few times, and you learn you better do your homework before you show up at the door. And I've had a great naval career, 28 years. I worked in the Navy budget office, so I know the numbers, and then ended up at Naval Research as number 2 at the Chief of Naval Research, and did a lot with the S&T budget. And I want to make a comment on the last group. I'm sorry Joe had to run off, but if you look at China, and you're trying to compare numbers, The thing that you're missing in those numbers is the amount a person is paid. So if you're just looking at a per capita amount, you got to realize in research, when you're talking about the Chinese spending $10 billion a year in AI and another $10 billion a year in quantum information science, that their researchers cost 80% less than an equivalent researcher in the U.S. And the fact that they can pay them dirt, where we're trying to pay these highly trained people a market wage, means that they're really doing 5 times the research. That $10 billion in equivalent research terms is really $50 billion. And we spend about $1 billion in the federal government in each one. But it's true, the private industry is where these research investments are really made and really have been made. I don't buy into this idea that they were being made primarily in the federal government back in before the 1980s. I think they've always been more private investment in development, maybe not in S&T and particularly in college funding. So enough said.
Yeah, thanks, Tommy. Thanks, Joe. Great intros and great feedback on the first panelist, and more to come on that, right? So first question, how do you see AI transforming defense strategies in the next 5 years? And I want to say, I know this question has probably been asked a lot, but I still feel like we are kind of maybe just now leaving the station. You know, it's still in the beginning stages for a lot of folks out there. So, Joe, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Well, I won't pretend like I can see everything in the future, but what you know what's good is seeing a lot of stuff now, right? Work with a lot of customers, work with a lot of corporate customers across the U.S., all public customers, right, in terms of seeing what they're doing. I would say the amount of change now is significant. Healthcare is one of the most exciting changes we see with drug discoveries and some of the work I was seeing on the corporate side there. I'll give you a real world example though, like on some of the changes that you could do, like just jet engine design. The General Electric work with the guys at Oak Ridge Labs, right, and the system there, they were working to, improve their software on it was an AMD and HP solution. To give you an idea, it was an HPC, a high-performance computing solution. You're designing jet engines, and just to give an idea of the improvements, we would see 10, 20% improvement. In my 26 years doing IT, you see small incremental improvements. The improvement on their system design jet engines was 35 times faster. They could design a jet engine in 6 years instead of 10. It was like, that's the kind of change you're seeing across all industries. It was like mind-blowing change. The guy's like, wow, we just saved billions of dollars in jet engine design because we can be much, much faster.
And it got higher performance out of it too.
Yeah,
it was faster, but better.
It was just, it's a fascinating thing. And so I think, like as you look around defense and you're using, it's really machine learning and things you're using, whether it be maintenance and on-time delivery, right? But even like in my world of aviation, engine overhauls, we used to base it on the number of hours. You don't have to base it on the number of hours. You base it on the performance of the engine, based on the heat of the performance of what's going on inside the engine. So it's a better use of when you would overhaul systems. But you could see that into everything, right? And I think, but I guess as I watch and the warfare goes, and Todd mentioned it earlier, was the sort of the UAVs, though, wow, that is just, it is unbelievable, in terms of some of the drones and other technologies we're seeing and some of the performance. As I watched the Dragon over China over the whatever it was, the New Year, I was just like, wow, imagine 10,000 drones coming at your carrier. Yeah, that's a problem, right? And as an Apache pilot, you wonder, are you just past that, and you're watching what's going on and things like that. So it's an exciting time, and I'm going on, but I think those are some of the things that are exciting for me and some of the changes. But it certainly can get any of the corporate examples, right? Whether it's your self-checkout, it's your supermarket, and little things. It's an exciting time to see some of the changes that are out there.
That's great. The last time I was at Oak Ridge National Lab, I had the opportunity to meet Lisa Su, who's the AMD Chief Executive Officer. Very impressive lady. And she was there to kick off the world's fastest supercomputer, the most capable supercomputer that's being built at Oak Ridge, and now another one's going to be built at Lawrence Livermore, just slightly ahead of the capability the Chinese has, and they're working to catch up. But the interesting thing about the future, as Christian mentioned, is that supercomputing capability that are only in national labs today are going to be in your laptops tomorrow. We've got on our desk out here AI computers. I got my first AI computer with a neural processing unit just a few weeks ago, and I've got it downloaded with Python, an AI software database to help you communicate with your teammates in developing AI solutions and foundations. And the idea of data science is going to be something done in teams, in small groups. And when you translate that capability to the military, and I think of it in terms of sonar and sonar calculations, or in ground-moving target indications, you're not only going to be able to tell who they are and where they are, but you're going to be able to predict where they're going and what they plan to do just by our sensors. That's a whole nother way to strategize warfare, is you have information that you do have a crystal ball. And it's going to be really powerful tools that are going to be used, and you're going to have it in a 2-pound unit that you can carry around with a 14-inch screen. So.
Yeah, great comments and points by both of you. And I think we touched in on the key areas where AI can provide the most significant impact. Obviously, poor performance, using it as a tool and getting results. But is there anything within defense that you also want to mention that this group can hone in on as far as helping them significantly?
Yeah, I think it's be endlessly curious and leveraging systems to get a better outcome would be my advice. SPY-6 radar on a ship uses a supercomputer to determine, is it a flock of birds or hypersonic missile? You have 1 second to decide, and where's the counterstrike coming from, right? Missiles firing over and it's going to go to Taiwan or wherever it's going to go. Where's the counterstrike coming from? How do you monitor that, right? Those things. Those are the things that are interesting. And I think to what Tommy said, the predictive nature now of some of the AI systems are significant, and I would say watch the corporate spends too. They've gone significant. So we talked a little bit about spending in the first presentation. To put it in perspective, like you talk about Oak Ridge and Department of Energy, and they might spend a couple $2 billion in IT a year. Microsoft spent $52 billion last year on infrastructure. We get an idea of the size and the difference. Google and Meta are like $40 billion. They're significantly larger, right? And I think that they're going to have to be more cooperation with some of the larger IT companies to help defense, right, on some of the things that are going on, and just sharing of technologies, and remembering, like I remind our company all the time, hey, we live in the USA, we're part of Team USA, we want to help, right, as best we can, and I think it's going to be a whole nation approach. Is where I see it going.
Yeah, those are all good points, and I think the one area that you're going to see change, and it's just coming to the forefront in the press, is QML, and that's quantum machine learning. If you look at the rapid advances in AI, I count 32 different versions of AI. So you want to talk about AI, tell me which of the 32 you're talking about. The generic term AI is meaningless, and you tell how you're applying it and what tools and techniques and algorithms you're using. But you use the advances there are probably 33 of them by now. I probably missed 2 of them this morning. The ones in AI don't compare to the advances in quantum information science. Now, quantum computing is a small part of that, but it's a big part of that, and that involves our encryption system and our protection and cybersecurity of sensitive data. But there's quantum communication, there's quantum protection, quantum QPC, the quantum protective units of what we have in our encryption systems today. Post-quantum encryption is what I'm thinking of. And when you merge those two together, you get quantum machine learning, QML. And I've got 3 books up here. I'll have them on the desk if you want to read through them. They're mathematically inclined, so if you don't like math, you don't want to read them. But the concepts are pretty clear. You merge quantum information science with AI technologies, and you're going to have things we can't even think of today. And I go back to this first book is about Peter Wittig. University of Toronto is where this field started in 2014. That's a decade ago. And Wittig brought out some brilliant ideas of how you apply the merger of the two. He went off to the Himalayas as he was working on a second edition, and he disappeared. And for many years, there was rumors, conspiracy theories, that the Chinese abducted him. And he was so brilliant in coming up with such great ideas, they took him away. And so his postdoc students were able to finish the book that he had started as a second edition. And just 2 months ago, they found that there was an avalanche in the Himalayas, and he had been buried in the avalanche. So the Chinese didn't get any of this. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to contribute. But the students have gone on and produced this book on quantum machine learning, and a more recent book in machine learning with quantum computing, more specific applications. IBM's investing a lot of money in quantum computing. And if you want to program in quantum, you can actually apply and use their machine and write your programs. But programming in quantum, much, much different than standard software programming. And so that is one of the fields where the human's not in the loop in a lot of the battles that we'll see in the future. The human gets in the loop before the loop occurs in the writing of code to tell the machines what to do under certain circumstances, under certain algorithmic situations, where if the sensors say this, things happen automatically, so you don't have time. The human doesn't have time to process and make a decision. The decision has to be made in microseconds, and that's what can happen.
Thanks, Tommy. That's great. And I think it's interesting having you both up here from not a, say, a cloud company or a server company, right? We have desktops and notebooks that are high performance. And you can make and do the performance of a supercomputer on our big Z8 Fury with multiple GPUs. I did a case study with a NASA engineer a couple years ago on an older model, and he was replicating his machine learning model on space weather predictability using this Z8 as quick, and the whole data set on this one Z8 tower versus their supercomputer they were using. So just something interesting on the fact that the distance that technologies come and what can be in your hands, like that AI notebook, which we're going to pass around, versus what you can have in a tower workstation versus having to do a server or a cluster, is something really to investigate and make sure you understand before plunking down, I don't know, 10 to 15 times more money on data centers, things like that. That on-prem desktop option, notebooks options are very compelling, and they're definitely worth taking a look at.
Yeah, you're only limited by the RAM that
Yep.
you've got. And today's chips are running with 128 gigabits of RAM. There's not many databases, even in defense use, where you need more than 128 gigabits. And if there are, 256 is on the way. I mean, it's the processing speed, and more importantly, with the NPU, is the efficiency and power requirements being dropped by about 90% than processing the same information in a graphics processing unit. The efficiency has gone way up, and the capability and speed has gone way up. And now we're only limited by the size of the database that are going to do the matrix inversions.
Yep, it's just a different set of tools that's much more advanced than what we were using a year ago, 3 years ago, all of that, right? It's moving at microseconds, right, Tommy? Okay, so I want to wrap up on this topic and move to cybersecurity. Is there any other imparting AI comments you guys want to make?
No, we can get deep into linear algebra if you want. You know, it's kind of funny. I hadn't done linear algebra since college, and we had to have retraining with a bunch of us in there, and it was really comical. There's a bunch of 40, 50, 60-year-old people in there doing linear algebra again. You know, measuring, that's how AI works. What's the distance between the eyes? Is that a cat or a dog based on the data analysis, right? Postal Service, reads your mail, goes through at Mach 10. It's an HP server taking a look at that to determine, is that a J for Joe? It has to have 10,000 J's written on hand by handwriting to know, yeah, it's probably a J. That's how it goes. Then it goes from that super high-tech system to the little silver bin that the guy delivers to your house or lady, right? It's kind of funny to see how it works. It is interesting. It's in all lines of work that you would see, and we certainly can get into it. But it does, Tommy mentioned, it does go back to math. That's what it is. It's a math equation to determine, you're making guesses. Yes, sir.
Well, today it's not the linear algebra, it's the nonlinear. It is the advantage of quantum with AI. you can start solving those nonlinear problems, and you can really, the chaos theory that is some of the hardest problems in defense, they're all of a sudden solvable, where people just have given up because they didn't have the tools. You have the tools now. It starts to make a whole difference.
Yeah, David.
Quick question for you. So, it's been a while since I did linear algebra also. So, I retired in 2006 from the Navy. And so what I'm looking at is if we're investing in new technology, the technology we have right now is often limited by how much we know or how much we can operate on that system. So making a large investment, is there some sort of training or some sort of team that can assist us?
Sure.
Because as we continue to develop, looking at going from GWAT to LISCO, looking at the doctrine, looking at how they're changing and fighting and what we're doing with hypersonic missiles, there's a lot of stuff that we don't even know how much we don't know. And as we develop, trying to figure out where we're going to go next with the DoD, we would need help.
Yeah, hey, let me try. So first, to be fair to Kristen, what she's saying, the performance of the notebooks and the products at HP, they're significant, right? The work, these sort of applications are still coming to get those benefits, but I personally love Copilot, I love ChatGPT and the others. To David's question, to go deeper, as you get into infrastructure, let me just share a little, yeah.
I'm also a Navy retired guy, got the hearing to prove it. Can you summarize the question?
Yeah, he was, go ahead, David, try one more time. It was just, it was overall, go ahead.
You want to? Yeah, he was just saying what kind of training necessary to learn what we don't know already. And that's what I took.
Yeah, and as you get it, like, as you're trying to learn. Let me just share a little nugget, though, from industry, because I was doing government stuff for a long time. Everybody thought everybody's going to be in the cloud. Ready for this little nugget? Everybody's about 30% in the cloud, except for Capital One. Capital One uses a lot of AWS. JP Morgan, oh, guess what? 30% in the cloud. Citibank, Bank of America, 30% in the cloud. 70% is on site, either colo or in their own data centers. Why? It's cheaper, right? It's better to do it that way. AWS pays twice as much, or sorry, Capital One pays twice as much to AWS to do it a little bit more in that way. But just, I figured I'd share that. It was kind of interesting that it was like, every company that I was working with was pretty similar. You know, we all use cloud applications, but this notion of everything in the cloud was perfect or nirvana, yeah, that's not the case. And to what Kristen brought up around doing computational work at the desktop of the client product, you're seeing a lot more of that. And to where he's going on the training, the biggest challenge we face at AMD is what he just asked. We can't, I had to tell NSA, I'm sorry, I can't get the people up there to help you train. I'm going to be there in 2 weeks with these guys. They were with the big cloud guys. Sir, they spend 9 times as much as you do.
But
And literally that discussion happened.
And
right?
a lot of the cloud, you're not looking at the AWSs or the Azures. You want that data protected at your site, and you want an on-prem cloud, and that's what you can do with the Z systems. Is one of the major defense contractors gave up their AWS contract and bought 250 of our Z workbooks in order to create an on-prem cloud where they could protect the data better and 3 orders of magnitude less money. And what was a payback period? It was about a month to get it paid back. But the one thing I wanted to mention in the advances to cut out a threat area is what's being done at DARPA right now. So we have 2 major threat areas in cybersecurity, in cross-scripting and buffer overflows. They have been around for 30 years, and if you study hacker tactics, it's the first thing they try. After they try to get the printer and get into the network, they next try to do a buffer overflow or a cross-scripting attack. And by using Rust, a new programming language, which requires compiling to eliminate those errors over C++, which is very vulnerable. If we can get out of the C++, now future contracts will be written for Rust. You won't use C++, but 90% of what defense is using today is C++. DARPA has a program to use AI techniques to take C++ programs and automatically convert them into a Rust language. If you can do that, you've just eliminated 2 major threats from hacking throughout defense, so very broad. And I applaud the DARPA director for funding that. And it's a small business that's doing it. They're using AI techniques, and I think it's going to be very successful.
Thank you to you both. And David, I did want to mention a couple things too around the learning piece. So first of all, I do think all of you in this room should be talking to each other about different projects you're doing, what you're looking to do, as well as talking to us. We are doing the matchmaking. We have a whole AI data science division that we're funding very, very heavily, and we have a lot of experts. A lot of experts that are super tenured, just like Tommy, just like Joe. AMD has a lot of resources too. So if you're looking to do a pilot or you have a project, we bring people in that are data scientists that are tenured. We also have something called cybercore technology. So if you're looking for a SCIF or a place to actually test the device, we have a facility outside of Baltimore, right? It's outside of Baltimore, that has,
It's near the fort.
okay,
Sorry.
that has staff that are actually, have classifications and credentialed to handle, they've got everything you need to handle your projects to a certain point, right? So that's another, I would say, opportunity, and we don't really talk, like, we just acquired CyberCore maybe a year ago, so, and they do services as well. So, Tommy, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, this is not just a hardware issue. AMD has great chips and products. We make hardware as part of our living. It is the hardware-software combination that creates things. And you cannot have security without both of them working together. And what we've tried to focus on is giving you the software tools so you can take full advantage in your development of the hardware potential and the hardware capability. And AI Studio is one of those collaboration tools we have. I've just downloaded it on my new laptop, and then the data science package that keeps up to speed with the latest open source efforts in Python, the latest libraries that are out there, and make sure you have access to them and then you're on your desktop. That's a critical need to remember. It's a software-hardware combination where change is going to occur.
Yes, exactly. So it kind of depends on, because obviously AI projects, starting with proof of concept is key, as you guys all probably know, but understanding where to start before that, that's where having industry experts like us, having our contacts, we know other people in the industry, we know other customers that are trying things, so we're happy to talk to you while we're here this week, and you guys will have our contact information. Just let us know. But we have a pretty hardy federal team that's very knowledgeable, very tenured, and then we have a really hardy AI team that is doing nothing but making sure they're not only on top of current trends, but future trends and so on. And we partner with the likes of AMD, Microsoft, NVIDIA, all of it. Is there a question?
Yeah, so one of the big pushes when you hear about the services talk about AI is they're concerned about, so U.S. puts AI on a combat system, they're going to have a human in the loop, right? Because we have an ethical obligation. Our adversaries will not. They will let AI unleash holy hell on us. So the question is, how are you guys, when you look at AI quantum, how are you giving us the edge so that we can still have a human in the loop, outpace our adversaries, so that we can thwart?
Well, I think that was the point of